By the end of this, hopefully, you guys will be able to create a Figma click-through prototype. So you have your title and anything else you want to put on the screen in here. Press play. And then there's a timeout there. You find and rescue all of them. You would click on each little astronaut to rescue them. And then usually, right, you would pan over or you would move the element, but here I have an arrow, so you could go and pan the screen yourself. Click on that again, and you get one. And then I found another one over here. And then here you have the score that adds up. You have a final end screen, and then you can replay it again. That's a really quick and easy game that you could put together with Figma as a prototype. Okay. You have this selection tool, so you could move something or you could scale something. If you click the space bar on your keyboard, you can move this artboard around, or you can also use this hand to move things around. That way you can drag it and get to where you need to go. There's what's called a frame, or space shown in this area. So a frame is what's being shown right here and what is being shown within the frame. That's why it's called frame. And then you have your shapes, your basic shapes and lines. You can also add your images through here. You could go and from your desktop, you can just go and drag something into the board and it'll put it on there. So that's pretty easy. And then you have a pen tool. You can click point by point and that would draw that circle. Then a pencil that lets you draw freestyle. You can add the text. And here are the resources. Go to the plugins and search for Vectory 3D Elements. You can go ahead and run that, and that's how you can add these little astronauts that I was able to put into the scene. And then comments are more for if you're working with some other designers or other people and they need to give you feedback, they can just click anywhere and put a comment on there. You can see other people in here, you can share, you can play what it is you're seeing, and you can also see the zoom view there. On the left-hand side, you have your layers. You can also create assets or reusable components, and these are the different modes. So the design view is when you're going and designing things, and that's where you're able to basically compose the layout, compose the scene, add, edit items. And then the prototype is when you're ready to make it do something, then you make those things interact with one another. And then you have inspect, which is more for development. All right. The first thing we're going to do is to build our scene. We're going to want to have a background. I found this background from a site called ESO. I also put together a bunch of other backgrounds that you can use. The next thing I did was I created like this plus 100. So this is the little thing that comes up after I rescue an astronaut, and that's the score that I get for rescuing them. I created that as an asset. You could do a text. You could say that's plus 100. And I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. So when I have this item, the text selected, over here, it changes to show you the text, and I can pick a different font, or I could choose a different size. Here, plus 100, 100 points. Then I would go and right click this, and I can do an auto layout. This auto layout is nice because if you want to add other elements to this, you could just drag, say, an icon into here, and it'll space it evenly within this space. Then what I want to do is I want to keep this centered, and I actually want to space it, add more spacing to that at the top and the bottom. And I want the background to have a certain color because remember we talked about making sure there's enough contrast between any kind of background and any of the UI that you use. You want to use a different background color here, which is the fill color. And I want that to be black. If you know the hex colors, it's all zeros for black, or you can also click on this box and you will be able to choose the color that you want there. But I do want it to be a bit transparent, so I'm going to put 70%. So that frame, then you can see that it's see-through. You can see the rocks a little bit there. You can also do some other things around the frame, like I want it to be rounded, the rounded corners, right? Rounded corners over here. You can double click this frame, the name of the frame here to be, say, 100 points. You can see these layers that you can click on to rename it if you wanted. You could rename this entire group as well. Now the way that Figma adds elements to the screen is from the bottom to the top. So the bottommost element is actually this component right here. That means that it's going to be at the very bottom of everything, and as you add more and more things, it just goes on top of it. So that makes sense. Now I have my score, and then I'm going to go ahead and right click that, and I'm going to make that a component now. So now that I've made this component, it's by itself. I can go to assets, and it would be under this page. See, these are the pages. So under the Brendan page, I created a component, and that's why these are the different components there. And then I'm going to go ahead and transfer that component over. So now I can reuse this as many times as I want, and I don't have to redo it again. I just made this and I just transferred it over to all the different points. But what you could probably see is that they're all different sizes, and that's because of perspective. Another thing to consider when you're designing for XR apps is, of course, the perspective. Things that are closer to you would be bigger, and things that are farther would be smaller. So I made that smaller and this one bigger than the original. Now I'd like to go in and use Vectory to add my little widgets. I just clicked on the resources area, and then I clicked on run under Vectory after looking for it. But usually once you run it once, it just pops up right away. Here you can choose from different elements. If none of these are what you want, you can go to my projects, or from a URL, you can load a project from Vectory. You'll also see some settings here on the left-hand side. Resize the plugin. See how it's cutting off for me? I can go ahead and resize that. So now I can see the other buttons that are there. And you can also change the field of view, which is how far away or how close something is. Material settings. So if you wanted to change something about this phone, for example, I clicked on the screen part, and I actually want that to be a different color. So now that's red, and I would hit the check to confirm. And if for some reason I wanted this to be teal, there you go. Then that's it. Intensity is how bright or dark something is. The rotation is basically of the light source that you're seeing there. You could kind of see it a little bit here. Just watch this area over here, how it's getting light and dark because you're moving the source of the light. And you can also change the orientation of this item that you're putting into the scene. So let's say I actually want it facing this way. Oh, and I can also turn the shadows off if I want to. Now, okay, this is great. I want to put it in my scene now. I can go click finish, and it's going to render that. And it's going to drop it into the scene. From there, I can resize it. If I wanted to edit it again, I could go and click the thing and I could run Vectory again, and it's going to pop up that same element that I was using. See how it did it, changed it. So I'm going to click on that and I'm going to say I actually want it to be an even brighter red. So now that should update that. There you go. This was the same exact astronaut that I had. I could just duplicate it. So I could right click, and I usually just use Command D, duplicate selection. But you can also duplicate by going to this Figma icon and edit and then duplicate. And then it just duplicated that right there. So now you have 3 of them. Then you can go and change the orientation of this other one. What I did was I did one astronaut and then I duplicated it, and then I went back and changed the rotation. So this one's facing forward, this one's facing slightly to the right, and this other one is facing to the left. That's what you can do with Vectory. And now that I have everything, all of the elements I need, I want to make sure that they're on the right place that I want. And I'm taking this entire thing and I'm going to group it. So you can do the right click and, well, it's already in group. So it says ungroup now. You could do Command G. It would group everything. And now that you have that, then I can start building this scene. So I'm going to create my first frame in here. And I just have it sized as 1600 by 900. I'm going to take this group and I'm going to duplicate that and I'm going to pop it into this frame. See how as I put it into the frame, it actually hides everything else around it that is clipping the content essentially. So if I have just a frame selected like this, it says clip content. That's why it's hiding everything else around it. I'm going to go back to my layer so I can select the actual scene. See, if I zoom out, the scene is selected and I can just move it anywhere. I'm going to go and put this here. And now I don't want these to appear right away. So I'm going to go ahead and click on any of these. So this is, let's see, this is 5. So for this guy, I'm going to go to pass through. Pass through is just the opacity of something. I'm going to say 0. I want everything to pass through and I don't want to see this element at all, but it's there. And I'm going to do the same thing for this one, 0. Okay, great. Now you have that, but I want this title and I want this play button. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy this. Of course, you can style it however you want. Okay, when you hit play, I want this title to go away and I want some sort of onboarding or instruction prompt for them to know what they need to do next. What we're going to be using here is Smart Animate. And what that means is from frame to frame, it will try to animate the same items that are named the same. So we're just going to duplicate the frame. When we duplicate the frame, it's going to be exactly copied. And let me give you a quick example. With Smart Animate, you can just, I'm going to move this up here and I'm going to put play button over here, right? So that's the frame 1 and then frame 2. When we go to prototype, I'm going to go use this using the play button. I'm going to click here and it's going to navigate to frame 2. And these are the different animation types. And I want Smart Animate. And I want it to ease out. So just leave it like that. Okay, I'm going to rename this as demo. Okay. I'm going to hide this for now. And I'm going to make this fill the screen. Okay, so this is what we just did. And when I click this one, see how it slides everything over to the new location, which is very nice. Okay, I'm going to remove that. Okay, but that's not actually what we want to do. What we want to do is we hide the play button. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the pass through and hide. And we actually want this to also be hidden. So I can close that one. And then we actually want this message to appear. So I'm just going to copy this message over to this other frame. Okay, now we can test that. Play. There we go. It goes away. And because it was in that location, right, that's why it faded off in that direction where that was supposed to, where we put it in there. So what's next? Well, we actually don't want a click on this one. We want this to fade out after 2 seconds, after 3 seconds or something, after somebody reads the instructions. So in order to do that, we can go ahead and create another frame. And again, do the same thing, pass through 0. But when we go to prototype, instead of on click, we would use the whole frame and we would animate the whole frame. I clicked this plus and made it go to this other frame. And instead of on click, it's going to be after delay. The delay is using milliseconds. 1 second has 1,000 milliseconds. So if we wanted to fade away after 3 seconds, we want 3,000 milliseconds. Now let's go back. Play. 1, 2, 3, and that's it. It faded off. Perfect. But we do want something else to appear here. We wanted the score, and we wanted these arrows to appear, the other UI. I'm going to go ahead and copy that. Let's check that out again. 1, 2, 3, and now you have your new elements there. Nice. Okay, let's go ahead and copy again. Same thing. It does go away, but we do want the game to start and we want the dude to show up. Once we have this, we go again to prototype and click on the plus after having the frame selected. We click this and again, not on click, but after delay. But we don't want it to be too long. We just want it to be 0.1 seconds. 100 milliseconds, let's do that. And then this will have to make the astronaut appear. Here you can expand and collapse the frames or the layers. I want to actually, for this time, I want to move this in front of everything else that was here before. All of these things that we hid, let's just put them behind everything. So they're at the bottom. And now I want to show my astronaut. It's this one right here. I'm going to click on the astronaut, which is hiding right now. And instead of 0, we'll put it to 100. And now that shows up. Okay, great. Let's try it. Yep, there it is. It's appearing. Okay, good. That's what we want. Then the next part would be make it do something. We select the astronaut. We then go back to prototype and we want people to click on this and rescue the dude. So when we click on this one, on click, we want it to go to frame 5, and that's that. Same thing, it's Smart Animate. But we do need to make sure that this has 0 because we want to hide it again. But the difference is we want the score to appear to confirm to the user that, yep, you did click on the correct thing. And you're going to get 100 points for it. Now let's check. Yep, there it is. And there's 100. The score appears again. Now, what we want to do next is, well, that has to go away. And then the user has to go look for more astronauts. I'm going to duplicate the frame again. And same thing, I'm going to hide it by doing the pass through to 0. And I also need to make sure that they get credit for that. So 100. Okay, I have to make sure that it times out. Again, click the frame. I go to the next frame, and it's not on click, it's after a delay. And let's say half a second. Okay, great. Let's test that. Click this. Yep, perfect. I got the 100 score. And now what's next? So the next thing would be to pan to the other area where there are astronauts hiding. I'm going to go here, and now I'm going to move the group. I'm in frame 7, and I'm going to select the scene, and I'm going to move it to where the astronaut is. There it is, right there. I will need to do the same thing, which is hide the score. But what happens from here? Here I have to actually do something. If I were playing this in real life, I would have to pan to the left or to the right to go find more astronauts. But I want to actually, because this is a simulation only, we have these arrows. I'm going to go use this to go to that space, to that spot. We still have Smart Animate on, and let's see what that looks like. There you go. Whoa, you see that went way too fast. Earlier we talked about making sure that we're not making any jarring movements, keep the speed slower so that people don't get motion sickness. So we'll go and slow it down a little bit. To do that, we would change how fast it's easing in or out. Why don't we try 3 seconds to just pan, like a nice slow panning, what you would probably do in real life as well, because you're looking for an astronaut. Let's go back and see how that, there you go. That's much better. Okay. Now it did something weird where you kind of saw this score appear and then disappear. And that's because in this previous scene, we actually had the score visible. If you click on the score in the previous scene 6, it's 100%. So let's put that to 0. And let's go ahead and do the other score 0, because otherwise it will also do the same thing. We're going to go ahead and make sure that because we're going to be copying this part. Let's make this score, this last one, also invisible. Great. Now let's test that. Okay. Okay, nice. That's working great. Now we'll do the same thing that we did. Let's duplicate this. We're going to do pass through of 0. We're going to get the score as pass through 100. And then we're going to do the prototype. If you click this, you would navigate to frame 8. And the ease out, since we changed it, we want to leave it as a faster ease out because it's not really panning anywhere. Okay, let's try that. Okay, great. Okay, now let's go and duplicate this one. We're going to make this go away. Pass through 0. And change the score to 200. And then go to prototype, click the frame, and then make it delayed. After delay, let's say half a second delay. And it's still 300 milliseconds. Okay, that's good. And then lastly, you need to take this group the scene and move it to where the new astronaut is, right here. Okay. Doing the same thing, we click on this button. It'll take us there. On click, navigate to frame 10. Now this is a little bit further away, but we'll keep it at 3 seconds, just like the last one. And we'll see how that feels like. Click this one. It's still a little bit fast. So maybe we can do 10 seconds maybe. That might be a little bit too long, but we'll see. 10 seconds is 10,000. Now let's try that. There you go. That's feels a little bit better there. The other one is a little bit fast. Okay, so there he is. And now let's see. The score is a little bit high, but that's okay. Maybe we can move the scene down a little bit. Yeah, let's move it a little bit down. And now we can duplicate this frame right here and make this guy hidden. For visible, 100 pass through. And now we can animate this one on click, navigate to frame 11, ease out, and then make that short again back to 300 milliseconds because we don't want it to take that long. And then duplicate this frame again. Make this one go away. Go back to design, 0 pass through. And add another point, add another 100 points. Lastly, prototype. After getting this frame selected, click on this, and it's not actually on click though, it is after delay, after 500 milliseconds or half a second, and then we're done. But it's not quite done because we do want to say a message that they're done. So I'm just going to copy that over. Congratulations. And finally, a replay button so they can start over again. Let's move this up here. And this was actually connecting to the other one. I'm just going to move it to this frame. Okay. Well, let's test where we're at. Click 100. Congratulations. Great. Replay. Awesome. And that does it for the prototype.